Okay, so now I just made my boards, which you can see here. This is a small one. I kind of custom made them. They're not perfect. They're not like to specs, but I don't really need them to specs because I am making these for garments. But so this is small ones. I kind of custom made them to my animals because I kind of have some small ones. So this is for my male skunk, and this is for my female skunk. It's a little bit smaller. And this one right here is for my coon, which is what I'm going to start with. And right now, I'm going to flush these animals out. So I'm going to take my raccoon here and turn it fur in. And this one was a little bit chewed up, which is why you couldn't put it through a freshening machine, which is why I got it in the first place, because the guy I know that hunts, his dog got a hold of it before he could. So he got to it, the dogs got to it before he could, so it's got a few holes. Nothing too big, just a few in the belly, which is okay because I don't really need that spot. There's one there, and there was a spot here that I had to cut off, but wasn't a big deal. So now I'm going to just put this on my board like this and bring it down. It is cold. Whew. It's chilly out here. So I'm going to kind of, it's not perfectly centered on here because I don't want it to be. I kind of want that top foot to be on there. So now I'm going to take this. I've got some tacks over here. And I'm going to just tack this onto this board. Hopefully it goes pretty smoothly. Because you kind of want it to be tight. There we go. That looks pretty good. So I want to take this nose piece though and bring it right up to the top because I didn't, that top lip was a little bit stuck. So I'm just going to take a tack and put it right in that nose piece right there because I'm not going to use this. And then I'm going to take 2 more tacks and tack it down here. I'm just going to kind of pull it tight. You want it with I don't have a flushing tool like most people use. So I'm just going to take this and tack it right in there. Like that. I'm going to tack this one down over here. And the tail, you can tack down the tail too. I'm actually going to cut my tail off. It got a little damaged, so I don't need it. I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to tack that down right there. Now, I'm going to take my knife. There we go. And I have an ulu. This is something they use like in Alaska primarily, which this even has like a little Alaska logo on it. Right there, as you can see. But so what I'm going to do is kind of hold it in my hand like this. And I'm just going to start cutting into the fat just a little bit here. And I'm going to kind of keep tension on it to kind of, because I don't want to go through the skin. I just want to take right down just the fat off. So I'm just going to do like a piece all the way through the center. And up here in coons, up at this top piece, they get this really thick fat around their neck. So I'm just going to slowly take this down because I don't want to cut all the way through the skin. I just want to take it down to that fat piece. I'm just going to do a center line. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, just kind of like a guide. And this raccoon is kind of blue, so he would have been really great for a fur trade use anyways. Okay, now as it's starting to split here, kind of see it, and I'm just going to keep pulling it over. I'm just going to work my way down, just like this. And it will just kind of roll up on itself. And right in here through this thick neck piece is tricky, but it's all about where you're holding this in your hand. And it's okay if you don't take it all off the first swipe. You can take it down later. You just want to get right down as close to the skin as you possibly can to get all this fat off of it. So I'm just going to shave this right down. These ulus are very sharp. Some people put these on a fleshing beam and they use a draw knife and they push and force the fat, and that works really well, but I don't have the space or the tools to do that. I have this ulu and it works really well to take the fat and the flesh off of it, and I just work it. This takes longer, but it works really well, and I can't really complain about that. Use what you got. And this is something that this is a tool people have been using for hundreds of years, thousands of years even probably, to do exactly this. So I'm just going to kind of keep working my way along here and scraping the fat down. And this raccoon is really blue, which is what you can see, this dark blue coloration underneath here. So he wouldn't have been a great candidate for anyways. And you can kind of work your ulu back and forth to kind of scrape up some of that other fat. And because they have a real thick fat. And this one, we're coming in, this is November, so we're coming into the winter time too. So this guy was kind of bulking up for winter a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of scrape as I go and get it right down to the skin and just keep working my way all the way down like this. You can see here. And it just kind of folds back. But this is, yeah, I left this coon, I skinned it about 24 hours ago, and I let it sit in my garage because it's cold out. And I'm in Michigan, so it's pretty chilly. We've got snow outside. I let this just stay chilled. It's really cold. My fingers are cold. I just left this to chill in my garage, kind of let this fat firm up. Now I'm only going to go down. I'm only going to go down on this until about here. And then I'm just going to keep working my way back and forth across, and then I'll do that last and kind of just scrape down all the way. So I'm just going to keep pulling it across. As you can see, the dark color on here, this is a really blue skunk, or raccoon. Which happens, which I'm not worried about because this is going to be for mittens. This raccoon is going to be a pair of mittens. It was a good sized coon. Now I'm just going to take my time and work my way across. Keep working it down and just scraping all that fat off the skin. And I got a really good deal. I only paid $10 for this raccoon because raccoon has been really hard to find this year. Has not been a great year for coons. They were kind of a little elusive this year, but that's okay. I got what I needed, so I don't trap in fur like as a hobby or as a profession even, or even as a hobby, honestly. We needed some mittens, so rather than this go to waste, I decided to use it, and it's going to suit my purposes. And everything on this animal pretty much is going to be used. I don't like to waste things. I'm not one to be wasteful, especially with an animal, because they just kind of happen to be in the wrong place, wrong time. So it's not their fault, you know. And it is, we got a little hole here to work around, which is fine. So I'm just going to keep working along on this. Some people are faster at this than I am, but I don't know. I do my best, and I take my time, and it comes out pretty nice. So I just kind of go through. And this is why it's important to keep your hide tight and tack it down. You don't want there to be a lot of give, because if there's give, you're going to end up nicking the skin, and you don't want to do that, because then you're going to put a hole in your fur. And I need this section of fur is the section that I'm going to make my mittens out of. There's going to be 2 mittens between this area. So now I'm just going to kind of switch to the other side and work my way down. And just keep going right along here. And I pull my fat back as I go, because I end up with like the membrane here, but I still end up with a little bit of like fat on the skin itself. So I kind of pull the membrane back, and you know, I'm sure this is all about how I'm holding my knife too. I'm not a professional. This is something that I do kind of out of necessity, so, but it works, and it does a pretty decent job. So I'm just going to keep rolling my fat along and keep tension on my fur as I go. And you can get some really nice long strokes in this center part here, which is really nice because it kind of comes out really nice and uniform. So I'm just kind of able to scrape that off. And actually this fat's kind of at the perfect temperature where it's kind of easy to scrape off. So I'm just going to kind of come along here and scrape up the goo fat that's left, as you can see. And I just wipe that over there. Just keep pushing it along. And I kind of really flatten out my ulu for this and just kind of push. And I don't make sure I don't catch the corners on the fur itself, because I don't want to make any holes. So I just kind of scrape it along But then I'll, you know, just kind of keep it cleaned up as I go. It saves a little bit of time later if I keep it cleaned up as I go along. Now for me, I don't do brain tanning. I use the Hunter Trapper's tanning solution. It's like an orange bottle. I got it on Amazon for like 10 bucks. It works really well. A lot of people do brain tanning, and they say that there's enough brain in every animal to tan their hide, but that's a longer process and a little more time-consuming process, you know, a little more work into it than what I'm prepared to do. So I'm just gonna keep working right along here. You can see, and see, this is a really blue hide, so I'm just gonna kind of keep scraping my fat as I go along and just keep rolling it off the hide. So this skunk, or this raccoon, I keep calling it a skunk. I keep calling it a skunk because I have 2 skunks that I'm doing after this. So, but I've seen, I kind of had looked up when I was like trying to figure out how to do this without the flushing tools that, you know, are the typical way to do it, but there wasn't really a whole lot of videos on how to do this with an ulu, which is an awesome all-around. You can do everything with this knife, honestly. There isn't a whole lot that you can't do. Some of it's easier to do with a different knife, maybe. Maybe there's a different tool that could be better suited, that are like, you know, made for this kind of stuff, but I have this ulu and it works really well. And you can butcher, you can cut up your meat. Like I said, there are people, you know, the Inuits, people who, this is the tool that they use. This is the tool they've been using for generations. They have ulu knives that are passed down from mother to daughter for generations and generations. So it works for them, and it's working pretty well for me. I got a little hole right here behind this chunk of fat, so I'm just going to kind of trim this fat down a little bit. I got a couple little small holes here from the dogs that got a hold of it. But it's okay. I can sew those up, and these are gonna make nice mittens. And I'm gonna actually line these mittens with rabbit fur, which I have all tanned out and ready to go. So this whole process for me is gonna take, these mittens will probably take me 2 to 3 weeks to make, with not start to finish. That's from skinning to tanning all the way to actually becoming mittens. So not a bad process. So I'm just going to kind of come back down here and work my way along. And see, you can make some really nice long strokes through this. And just kind of keep your ulu at an angle. And the skin's actually pretty tough, so it's not as easy as you think to like slice a hole in it. I'm just going to trim some of this off so I can rotate my hide. I got it started. There's like a bloodshot section over here, but so I'm just gonna, I have a box over here for guts. Oh, my box, there's my box. So, and now I'm just gonna kind of scrape this down of some of the extra fat, and I really want to get as much fat off it as honestly possible. So I'll even change my direction, and I'll go one way up the hide and push it, and then I'll turn it around and come the other hide, because especially right here around the neck, and this is where this tack comes in handy, but sometimes I'll grab them right here by the ears and just flush it down. Just keep my ulu at an angle and keep pushing it, and that'll help clear that up. So I'm just going to kind of clean up around this hole here. There we go. And just keep this way. And just keep working my knife around, and I'm just gonna come right down here now to my end of I'm gonna move these boards. These are my boards from my skunks here. So I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. And there are different ways to do this. I've seen so many different ways, but it all also depends on what you're doing. What do you need? What you need, you know? Like for me, I made all my boards because I'm not taking any of this to the fur trade. I just need to have the boards somewhat the right size, just basically hold my animals so I can dry them. And ow, poked myself. tools I used for this raccoon was I used a fillet knife, which I have over here. And I have it just for little tiny things. Comes in handy, especially for little things. I also have an X-Acto knife that I use for like little tiny detail work for stuff. And that's what I use to kind of skin it, to get like the little pieces started for skinning. And so I'm gonna, there we go. And now I'm just gonna work the bottom now, work it down. And finishing it is kind of like the trickiest part for me. Getting it all the way down. I always get tangled up with these tacks, but you want to get it all the way down. All the way down to the bottom. A box of guts. Gross stuff. And we use bait. We use the bodies and guts and fat and everything for bait for coyotes. Because I'm hoping I can get some coyote this year and make some coyote mittens too, or a coyote hat. Line that all with rabbit fur. Figure that would be pretty cool. So, just gonna keep scraping along on this. And I'm kind of coming down to the tacks here at the end, which make it kind of tricky. So I'm just gonna kind of give it a push. So like, that's the gist of that. So you can see here, this raccoon is very blue. All right, so I'll kind of show you here. You can kind of see I still have a little bit more scraping to do, but that's the gist of that. And I'm just gonna rotate it, flip it over, flip my hide over, retack it, and keep flushing.